Okay, so the good news, bad news about Family Office Club. I don't know about you guys. Here's the good news. You get all these great speakers. It's awesome. You're taking all these notes. The bad news is every time Richard gets up on stage, and here he is in Nepal, here he is doing a marathon in the Grand Canyon, here he is with his diet plan, here he is with the billionaires, and I'm sitting there at the table going, what's wrong with me? I'm kidding. How do you get better except by hanging out with people like this? Okay, so here's what happens when you have a 7-year-old grandson. He looks at the slide and he goes, big text. Now, by the way, that's what they call me, native Texan. Big text. That's not a nutshell. I said, okay, well, how about, Garrett, I call it leadership and an acorn. Okay, that'll work. So today you're going to get leadership and an acorn. And I get asked all the time, you know, we obviously created a very, very large real estate company. I've got 200,000 agents. I was laughing. Someone this morning said, you know, you realize, Joe, if all your agents showed up in New York, you'd need 500 hotels to put them in. And I thought, that's kind of an interesting way to look at that. But the bottom line is, we've had 40 years with the company. I've been in real estate for 50 years. And so as I hear the speakers today, it's interesting because I have a little bit different perspective. In fact, last time I was in Beverly Hills with Richard and his group, and I spoke, a gentleman came up, he said, you know, Joe, you know who you are? I said, no, who am I? He said, you're the Charlie Munger of real estate. And I'll take that as a compliment. Because I do think old world. I do think a little bit old school. And when people say to me, what are the most important leadership skills that I can implement inside my company? All companies are run with 4 basic ingredients. But today I'm going to talk about 3. And they are clarity, accountability, and culture. And before we dive into that, I want to share something with you. When we came back from the pandemic, everybody remember that? Trump closed down the border on Friday. My wife, who's somewhere in the audience, but I can't see her because of the lights, we were pheasant hunting in South Dakota. I had COVID, but I didn't know it. I just thought I had a bad cold. And then I got back to Austin. I was sick as a dog for 3 days. And then I politely gave it to her. And then she was sick as a dog-ass for 3 days. So we took care of each other. It was kind of cute. Thank goodness we got over it. But when we got to the office, this literally was how we felt. What is going to happen now? I mean, we'd never been through a pandemic. Didn't know what the impact of this was. I had my agents in Pennsylvania calling saying, hey, the government in Pennsylvania does not consider real estate a necessary business. What are we supposed to do? And it was very worrisome. But now here we are 4 years later. And I think now about a saying that my mother used to always say, and y'all will appreciate this. You ever heard this? The more things change, the more they stay the same. A friend of mine called the other day. He works with Google. And what has Google told everybody to do? Get back here. Get back here. Another friend works at Alphabet. What have they said? Get back here. Another friend works at Amazon. What has Amazon told all their people? Get back here. And there's a reason. And we'll talk about that. I want to share this. It was worth the trip just to get this. I don't know if you've ever seen this. This is a great statement. I guess I got to get up here to read it. The budget should be balanced. The treasury should be refilled. Public debt should be reduced. The arrogance of officials should be tempered and controlled. People must again learn to work instead of living on public assistance, and the assistance to foreign lands should be curtailed lest our country become bankrupt. Anybody want to guess who said that? There you go. What a great answer. How do you like this? 55 BC. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Folks, I've been doing real estate for 50 years. I love the panel that was up here. What's going to happen with inflation? It's not going to go away. And there's a reason for that. I've always lived by this statement. The more things change, the more they stay the same, and everything changes except human nature. I get asked a lot when I go places, Joe, what are the books that you read? I mean, what books do you read? And I always feel bad because if I can only read as many books as Richard reads, I just don't think there's any way I can get there. But 2 books that I've read in the last 20 years, besides Think and Grow Rich, which I thought was one of the best books ever written by Napoleon Hill. Pretty much every business thing I've ever read is inside that book. But one book, very interesting. I found this book in Paris, flying back to New York. And I'm okay with movies, but I like to read a book when I'm on a plane. I just get more out of it. Picked up this book. This book was written by a German author who had 6 weeks to write a history book for 6th graders. And when I picked this book up, I couldn't put it down. And the reason is there are life lessons in the book that this guy wrote that are incredible. And one of the things he said is you'll never stop war. And why? Because the people who cause these wars, human nature never changes. We're not going to be able to get these people to think differently. If you have something, they want it. And when you read the book, there was something like 570 major wars over 2,000 years. The more things change, the more they stay the same. This is another book I thought was interesting. I don't know if you've ever read Nathan Taleb's book. He's basically a mathematician. And he wrote a book about what are black swans. Was the pandemic a black swan? Oh, yeah, no question. There are a lot of things in our lives that are black swans. Black swan events do change the course of history. I look at the office buildings right now, and everybody's still trying to figure out what flex working space looks like. For me, that was the black swan event. And it wasn't the pandemic, it was the fact that we all woke up to the fact that we went home, opened up our laptop, and started talking on our mobile phone. And then we realized, hey, this is all I'm doing at work. And it was. Now, things have changed and they've reverted back, and Amazon has said, I want you back in the office, because what they've now lacked is that third thing I talked about, which is culture. A lot of us can't function by being home. I can't. Why? I'm a people guy. I've got to be around people. I create, I think, I love to collaborate. That's one of the 4 personality styles that doesn't work well at home. And so that's what these companies are now starting to discover. And we're seeing it a lot. Oh, this is another one. I love this. I don't know if y'all have ever heard Mark Dotzer speak. This guy's an economist. He's a very, very good economist. I was with Mark about a month back, and we were talking about all the changes and the wars and interest rate change and all this stuff. And Mark looks at me and he says, Joe, he says, nothing matters except what the American consumer is thinking. He said, because that's what drives the economy. In fact, I love Dotzer. One of his main indices that he uses to figure out where the economy is going is truck sales. Truck sales. He says that's one of my biggest indicators. If I go look at truck sales and see what truck sales are doing, I can tell you where the economy is going. Who would have thought? The more things change, the more they stay the same. So let's talk about clarity. Yesterday, everybody talked about vision. A company that has vision, a marriage that has vision, any enterprise that has vision, as Richard said with Earl Nightingale, and by the way, Richard, it wasn't in the 20s and 30s, it was in the 50s when Earl started what he did. Brilliant guy, father of modern presentations and self-help. What he said is you will become what you think about. Your company will become what you aim it toward. And what I want to do is add something to vision and tell you that whatever the vision is, it needs to follow this right here. Simplicity. Simplicity is success. I always love this about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was nothing but a marketing guy. Like Elon was not a rocket scientist. He's a rocket engineer. He's not even that. He's just a really smart guy who knows how to go hire rocket engineers and figure it out. Steve Jobs could look at things and concepts and understand what you needed before you needed it. Who would have known a mobile phone like that? Like he said, they didn't know they needed it until I put it in front of them, and then everybody said, this is great. And by the way, the navigation on it is so simple. And that was half the key. That was the key to Apple. I have a PC computer right now that's driving me insane because the navigation is nowhere good as Apple. And I have an Apple at home, so I'm computer dexterous. I can use both. But the bottom line is I've always admired Jobs' ability to figure out how to make things simple. These two companies did the same thing. Google, there were 36 search companies out there when Google first appeared. And they figured out how to just put a box on the screen. That's what won them their market share. It was simple. And Amazon, I can't even begin to tell you how simple that is now. Everyone in this room knows that. It's crazy. I'm sitting over there buying something at the table. They already have my card. They already have everything they need. They'll even use my Discover credit points. It just doesn't get any easier than that. And so that's what's happened. Simplicity wins every time. If you make a vision complicated for your people, it's going to have a problem. Just make it simple. I mean, I love that we do planning. In fact, I'll talk about this as I'm watching my time frame here. Yeah, remember the $50 hammer for the military? The biggest way to get your company screwed up is to start letting people drive concepts and ideas at your company that become complicated. We had this, we hired 40 people inside our tech operation at Keller Williams, and they were coming out with all these great systems. Guess what? When we went to go get feedback from the agents, they said, why are you making it so complicated? Blah. You're right. You guys get out of here. Let's go make this simple. McDonald's has a history of figuring out how to keep things simple. Second most precious resource is your time. What's your first most precious resource? You got that from Family Office Club. Your health. Doesn't matter how good you're doing if you're dead. Well, take time out to think. I want y'all to understand. I always think about the ketchup bottle that was glass for years and years and years, although for 20 years you went to Sonic Hamburger, and how did they give you the ketchup? It was in a plastic squeeze bottle. It took 20 years for it to show up at the Kroger. 20 years. Somebody one day is looking at it going, you know what? We ought to produce this thing in plastic. And it was logical. And I want to tell you, there's things inside your company right now that if you use this analogy and think about them, you're going to be able to make them better. Clarity, it's a powerful ally. Okay, I love this one. And where I put down here, this was one of we had a professor, Professor Fox. He was an economics professor. My class was at 1 o'clock at the University of Texas. This guy would go to the hamburger joint and he'd get 3 beers. So he was drunk as Cooter Brown when he would come teach the class. But he said the most profound things, and he told us this one day. He who rides a tiger has a problem dismounting. What do you mean? What he meant was, if you start your week, if you start your day, if you start your month, and you don't have a written plan, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. And this was before they had CNN. This was before you had Instagram, before you had all these things that just compound your day trying to figure out what's important. So his whole theory is, whatever you write down, you'll hold yourself accountable for, and you'll get it done. And I've often said, how many of y'all have taken a trip for 8 days somewhere? Everybody in this room. Isn't it amazing how productive you are the 3 days before you leave? And why? Because you made a list. You made a list. So it's as simple as that. And trust me, folks, you can look on my table over there. I use the Big Chief tablet system. I just sit down every day and I write down what are the 5 rocks we got to get done based on my monthly plan so I can hold myself accountable. It's huge. Who you spend your time with matters. It ain't these people. You know, we have a leadership vacuum. What Dotzer says, and I think he's right, he says, here's the good news about Washington. They've been screwed up for 10 years. He said, they're going to be screwed up for the next 10 years. Nothing's going to change. And in a way, that's a good thing because it's certainty. And I thought, isn't that interesting that he would think like that? But he said, yeah, don't depend on them. They'll screw up things for the next 10 years like they've been screwing up things. I think he's probably right. So who do you spend your time with? Number one, spend your time with yourself. Richard, God love him, if nothing else. Everybody walks away from this thing saying, I got to get my health in order. I got to get my life in order. I need time to think. And I want to tell you something. For me, time to think, I get in my car. In Texas, we all drive Suburbans or Expeditions. We're all in these big vehicles. I turn off the radio, and that's my thinking time. And it's amazing how I can think about things and come up with ideas that otherwise I'm inundated with information everywhere. So take time to think. It's important. Take time to spend with family and friends. I'm 71 years old as of last week. Guess what? I'm already having friends drop off like flies. And most of them are cancer related. So it's totally indiscriminate. But all of a sudden it makes you start to realize, hey, I'm mortal. Life can be short. What we don't know is, how long do you have? So spend the time with the family and friends. You came into the world with nothing. You got to go out with nothing. But the memories and who they think you were when you were here, that's really important. Spend time with your team. That's why Amazon's saying, get back here. I get it. I get it. I spend more time with my team than I do with my wife, which is terrible. But we're a family at work, and we're a productive family. So spend time with your team. Give them a future, by the way. Y'all don't know this, but Keller Williams takes 46% of their office profits and spreads it with the agents who created that office. That's how I created 200,000 owners. And when you can get your people to think like owners, that's very, very powerful. Spend time with your customers. You want to advance your business? Sit down with your customers and go, how could we improve what we're doing? It's amazing when I talk to customers. They say, you know, very few people ask us that question. And they've got the answers. They've got the answers. City of Austin goes and spends $1 million bringing consultants in for all kinds of goofy stuff, when all they'd have to do is ask us as the developers, hey, how can we speed this up? We know. We're there every day. And last but not least, everybody else, okay? So I hope this helps. Clarity, your vision needs to be simple. Secondly, you need to be able to hold yourself accountable. That's the written word. And third, learn to create a culture where people who come to work with you never have to leave. And you're going to do great. Thanks, guys.